All right, Rob. Dwayne Wade was on Carmelo Anthony's podcast, 7 p.m. in Brooklyn is what it's called. That's a nice name. And they were talking about, the Heatles, LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, and that whole 4-year run that they had where they reached 4 NBA finals and won 2 back-to-back in the middle years. But here's what Wade had to say, Rob, about his time to Carmelo Anthony.
Nobody wanted it. My team didn't want it. My family didn't want it. They were pissed. Bron team didn't want it. No one wanted that to happen. The game of basketball didn't want it to happen. So I made sure I linked myself with Bron even more because I knew we had to be so tight, or it was going to be a failure.
Well, first I'll say this, Rob, because as you know, I was covering that very closely for ESPN at the time. And I know I did talk to people in LeBron's camp. I'm thinking of one person in particular that definitely was not excited about this happening. Obviously, was LeBron's decision. So this person knew their lane, but was not excited about it happening. But, once LeBron made up his mind, they just tried to make the most of it. But, support him any way they could. But yeah, Dwayne Wade that's not revisionist history. Like I said, at least with one person, I'm not sure if LeBron's entire team, as Wade called it, didn't want it, but I know there was at least one person that did not, who was, and this is not a bit player. This is somebody that's, really important. And so outside of that, Rob, it's interesting that he says he didn't want it to be a failure. They won 2 championships in 4 years. And I've said this many a times on this show, Rob. I was on SportsCenter that night. I was, on ESPN almost around the clock around when this was happening. And if you had told me after the decision was made that they're going to win 2 of the next 4 championships, I would have been like, that's it? Like what? I mean, they got to win at least 3. And when I look back at it now, I don't look at it as a failure for sure. I mean, you win back-to-back championships. You reach 4 NBA finals. They had a run where they won 27 straight games. But they certainly didn't reach their full potential. They certainly didn't fulfill their promise with that run. It would have taken at least 3 championships. And I'm not even saying a 3-peat. Some people might throw that in there. But I think they would have had to win at least 3 in those 4 years to really, kind of live up to the billing. So not a failure, but I would say an underachievement for sure.
They failed, Chris Broussard. You're trying to sugarcoat it. They were disappointing. No, they failed, Chris.
And how you fail when you won 2 championships
because
back to back?
When you put together that team, and that's why.
That's all Durant won with Golden State, which was an even better team.
But here's the problem, Chris. When they put that team together, it wasn't about winning 2 championships. LeBron got up on that stage in Miami, and what did he say?
Not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5,
Chris,
not 6,
and people were
not
like,
7.
right? People were
and
like,
when I say that, I really believe it.
Thank you, LeBron. And that is what the feeling was.
Yeah.
Who's going to beat them? Nobody, Chris. And then this team, this broken down Dallas Mavericks team.
With 1 superstar.
Right. And with J.J. Barea, or whatever his name was.
Yeah, that was it.
Chris. And they beat them, and they don't do anything that was special. 3 in a row was special. Shaq and Kobe, special. Michael Jordan, 3 in a row, special. They did the Celtics, right? Who else am I missing? Who have won?
Well, there have been 3 three-peats since Bill Russell. Obviously,
okay,
Russell
they won
right.
But you get me, Chris.
Jordan did 2 of them, and then Shaq and Kobe. That's it.
That's what makes you special.
Right.
This was supposed the Heatles, like the Beatles. They were supposed to be special. They wind up not being special. Kobe and Pau Gasol won 2, Chris. You know what I mean?
Right. Back to back.
Yeah.
Didn't they win back to back? Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
You're right.
That's what doesn't make them special.
Teams that weren't quote unquote super teams have won back to back.
And this was a super team. People were shaking in their boots when LeBron said that. People thought, who's going to beat them? They're loaded at that time, Chris. Right? They're loaded.
Oh yeah, they were. They were. I mean, Rob, Dwayne Wade at the time, first of all, he had already won a championship.
Without LeBron.
Right. And if people remember, Dwayne Wade was a top 5 player. LeBron was the best player in the world. I definitely think he was the best player in the world at that point, 2010. Dwayne Wade was a top 5 player. And Chris Bosh was an all-NBA player in Toronto with his own team, a number 1 option. And like I said, that's why I would have been shocked that anybody would have said they're only going to win 2. I'm still not going to say failure just because they won back to back, but I stick with disappointment. Here, I will say this too, Rob. And I think, in the GOAT conversation, I've got Jordan, LeBron's number 2 for my list. Same with you. And I think one of the arguments against LeBron being the GOAT, and this is going to be Rob G's 21st year. 21st year in the league.
Yep.
Okay. Rob, LeBron in his 21 seasons has never been on like an all-time great team. And I know that this Heatles team was great. I'm not saying they weren't great. And if you go 10 deep, they're somewhere in the 10. But I'm talking about, Rob, a historic,
right.
You know what I mean? A dynasty.
And
we got the Showtime Lakers. Yep. We got the Jordan Bulls.
Right.
Shaq and Kobe Lakers, the Warriors of Steph and KD. Like, we've got teams that we name. And the Heatles are not one of them.
No, they can't be. They can't be because there was too much disappointment, in especially Chris, the Dallas Mavericks one. That was the one,
there's no
right.
doubt
That's the one that just.
Because and Rob, I think, and contrary to popular opinion, I do acknowledge, think, believe, and have no problem saying Dirk Nowitzki is an all-time great player. He's awesome. All right. But I think one of the reasons people feel like I underestimate Dirk, and maybe one of the reasons I put a lot of stock. That's a great championship. He beat, a big 3 by not by himself, but he was the only superstar. Jason Kidd at that point was old and not even in his prime. But Rob, to me, the number 1 thought, image, remembrance of that finals that I have is not Dirk Nowitzki and Jason Terry and all these guys, just taking it to the Heat. It's LeBron folding. And that's why that's why Dallas won. Because LeBron just melted down. That's it. That's why they won. The Heat were up 2-1. LeBron and Wade were joking. We knew it was over. They were the better team. And then LeBron just disappeared. And that's why it's a championship for Dallas. I don't take it away. It's a great accomplishment. But that's probably why, in my mind, I look at it like the main thing I think about is the Heatles falling apart.
Yep. Nah, it's hard not to think that, Chris, because you're right. And they thought that was I don't want to say in the bag, but in the bag.
That's what they right.
In
Remember joking about Dirk coughing? Oh, he got a cold.
Oh yeah,
he's
sick. Oh yeah, he was sick. No, the Heatles were sick after they wound up losing that championship, Chris.
Right. But do you agree? Like when you talk GOAT, and again, we got LeBron number 2, so it's not a diss. But we always say you nitpick. All of these dudes are incredible. And when you're really looking, Michael Jordan was a part of, like I said, Rob, 3 3-peats since Bill Russell. And Jordan's got 2 of them. And LeBron, in 21 years, never a part of like a historically great, the upper elite team.
Right. Well, you talk about, you remember that team? You remember Shaq and Kobe?
Right.
They won without Karl Malone and Gary Payton. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like it was those 2. And we do think about that. And some of these other teams, Chris. And then you can't put the Heat in that class because they didn't do anything that was really special. And I think that's why, to me, it was a failure because they really expected to do something. Had they won, if they'd been together, Chris, all 4 years and won all 4 championships, know what we're talking about. Am I right?
And honestly,
right?
Rob, they would be. They would arguably be the greatest team ever.
That they would be. It'd be like, they put it together, and guess what? They won all 4 years like they were supposed to.
Yep.
LeBron was right. Not 2, not 3, not 4. And then LeBron leaves after 4 years.
Right.
And he said, I won every year. Exactly.
Yep. No, there's no doubt. There is no doubt. I will say this, Rob. When they lost that first year, even though it was their own fault, it wasn't like, again, that the Mavericks were better. But it would have been interesting, Rob, to see how fans would have reacted had they won the first year and maybe went on to win at least 3 and maybe all 4. Because them losing, Rob, that first year, I do think got a lot of fans off their back. Because people thought it was going to be so easy. And then they go out there and lose the first one. And now it was like, people were like, okay, they got a mountain to climb. And then they did climb it the next 2 years. And so I just think people viewed it as tougher than they would have had they won the first one. It's like with Durant, Rob. You still have people, Walt Frazier, saying that there's a mental asterisk by those championships. And people still, in some corners, downplayed the championships and what they meant for Durant because it was viewed as easy. And LeBron, I do think I don't want to say caught a break, but I think that changed the way people looked at that team. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. To a certain extent, I do.
Yeah.
Because they weren't gangbusters to start.
Yep, right.
So it kind of derailed them a little bit as far as people and the way they viewed them.